everybody, and welcome back to the Replicant, but we're on Branch B. Yeah, that was a twosie, I know. It was about 15 episodes, I think, for Branch A. It's not going to be that many for the rest of the branches, but there are still going to be a decent amount of things. I did some research, and I know where the rest of my weapons are, so I have to... Apparently there's a blacksmith shop in Seafront. I guess I missed that. So I have to buy all those. You're going to unlock something in this new playthrough that I have to do as like trials, and the weapons are in there. And then I have one side quest to complete that has a spear that I didn't get in Branch A. So we'll be doing that. That's needed to continue Branch C, but we're going to try to get that out of the way so that it's done. I will try to speed things along, and as long as there's not an insane amount of like new dialogue, I won't be doing all 3,000 side quests, and I probably won't do them anyway because they're annoying. And there's going to be a lot of new things, but we won't be doing the side quests. We'll still be doing the story stuff. I'm out of breath because I'm excited. KIANE'S dreams. Discrimination. The sound of rain filled the village. The steep cliffs that surrounded the area magnified sound, causing even the slightest drizzle to rattle like a thunderstorm. Thin wisps of smoke streamed from huts as the villagers huddled in their homes and waited out the rain. A single child, however, had braved the downpour and was now wandering slowly toward the wooden, hawk-shaped weather vane at the center of town. The wanderer reached the vane, which had existed for as long as anyone could remember, and stared. The child's face was simultaneously delicate and fierce, like a teacup that had survived a shipwreck. Those traits combined with pale, white skin to give the face an almost sexless quality. If the beak turns east, I go home. If it stays west, then The child blinked, and rain slowly dripped down the young one's short hair and began its long descent to the ground. Come on, come on. The child felt a slight breeze and watched as the vane slowly creaked to life, spinning this way and that for a moment, and it finally settled with the beak pointing firmly toward east. East? Really? Before the vane could move again, a jagged rock came spinning and tumbling through the air, striking home against the child's head. The force of the blow dropped the child to the ground as hail of stones began to fall all around. Oh no, they found me. A heartbreaking smile crept across the child's face as the stones continued their assault. Through the rain, the sound of multiple footsteps grew louder before a voice rang out. Yoo-hoo, KIANE! The voice belonged to Demo, the worst of all the bullies in the area. As KIANE struggled to stand, a final stone came skittering through the mud and bounced against her foot. Blood oozed from a cut above her eye and blurred her vision, but she could make out the shapes of Demo and his usual gang of idiots. The boy seemed taken aback for a moment by KIANE's seeming indifference to the blood dripping down her face, but was quickly regaining his bravado. What's up, freak? You like the rain? You like getting all wet? Or did you finally decide to run away from home? Though she knew it was futile, KIANE turned to leave. Before she could get more than a few steps, the other children scrambled around her, and cruelty burning in their eyes. KIANE knew those were not the only eyes on her. The tormentor's parents watched from the safety of their homes. She was attuned to this sensation. It was one she had experienced many times before. While some villagers simply turned a blind eye to the actions of their children, many encouraged it openly. In a society ruled by superstition and fear, KIANE'S was something to be hated, if possible, destroyed. I didn't say you could leave, freak! Demo's words chewed at her like a worm through an apple. He can't hurt me, she lied to herself. Be strong, be brave. He can't hurt me, he can't hurt me, he can't hurt. Oh, look, the little freak is gonna cry. What's wrong? Are you sad that everyone hates you and wants you dead? KIANE prayed for the rain to flood down and carry her away from a world that seemed to have no place for her. But if there were gods, they chose to ignore her. As Demo crept ever closer, the clouds began to thin and the rain slowed. Even the weather hates me. I'm useless. I'm a failure. I wish Demo's rock had taken my head off. KIANE couldn't meet Demo's leering gaze, and she lowered her eyes and stared at the muddy ground below. The bully moved until he was inches away, and he could smell the scent of an old meat on his breath. The boy grabbed KIANE'S face with thick fingers and yanked it upward. She tried to turn away, but he forced her gaze back and jammed his thumb against her eyelid to pry it open. Show me. No. Did you just say no? Demo grinned. You don't say no to me. No one says no to me. Not even taking his attention from KIANE, he called to his cohorts. Come on, guys! Let's give the freak what she deserves. As soon as Demo finished, kicks and blows began to rain down upon KIANE. Demo paused, still grinning, as KIANE curled into a ball and tried to make the pain stop. I don't get you, freak. What you acting like a girl for, huh? Everyone knows what you really are. KIANE ignored the question, choosing instead to stare at the weather vane. It continued to point east, and if supremely confident about the future it had chosen for her. Go home? Yeah, that's a funny joke for someone with dead parents and no home to go to. Freak! Chanted the children. Freak! 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 KIANE closed her eyes and listened to the rain, waiting for the pain to start again. As the clutching hands of the village children closed around her, she bent her mind to the sound of the rain, letting it become her world entire. The rain fell, but the pain never came. Only when the laughter of her tormentors turned to the terrified cries did she dare open a single, blood-caked eye. KIANE was shocked to see Demo sprawled on the ground, holding his head and screaming in pain. She could see blood welling from the spaces between his fat, twisted fingers. Oh my God, he's crying. He's actually crying. Deprived of their leader, the other children glanced back and forth between themselves as if waiting for someone to step forward and take charge. When no savior emerged, they began an uneasy shuffle away from KIANE. But the young girl was the least of their concerns. Instead, their attention was rapt on the ancient woman standing a few feet away. After struggling for her breath for a moment, she finally spoke in a thick voice filled with rage. Hurts like a bitch, don't it? Now I suggest you scatter before I throw another one. And if any of you little bastards ever touch my KIANE again, I'll do far worse than throw a rock, and you can count on it. The old woman crouched down and gently touched the hand Demo was using to cover the wound. Before he could think to protest, she ground her palm into the wound and twisted back and forth. Ow! Stop it! What are you doing? Quit whining. Ain't no one ever died from a scratch. You hit me with a rock, you stupid bitch! A big one! That thing could have killed me! The old woman shrugged. Death is the best cure for stupid. Demo's face twisted with rage at her words. Locking his eyes on KIANE, he took a step backward and spat on the ground. Get out! Leave this village! No one wants you here! Either of you! Seeing the old woman grab another stone, Demo and his companions turned tail and ran. As they fled, the old woman grabbed her side and barked a single laugh. Ha! Look at the fat boy go! Guess he's healthy enough to run from a fight. My baby. You're not invited. He was crying. The woman's smile faded as she turned her attention to Kaine. Kneeling down, she removed her shawl and placed it on the young girl's shoulders, and then produced a cloth from the folds of her dress and began blotting the blood on her forehead. Oh, Kaine, why didn't you fight back? You're stronger than that lot. The words of her grandmother stung Kaine, and she turned away. Don't be nice to me, she said. I don't deserve it. Nothing matters anymore. Her tears, held unchecked for so long, finally began to fall on muddy ground. Everyone hates me. They think I cause bad things to happen. They think I'm a freak. I wish I was dead. As Kaine's tears turned to sobs, she felt her grandmother's hands on her shoulders. Despite her advanced age and diminutive size, she was a woman with surprising strength, and Kaine found herself unable to turn away. Don't talk like that, girl. It's a river wide and deep that flows between the realms of this world and the next, and it grants no mercy to any that attempt the crossing. You got a duty to fight until your last breath. Understand? The old woman tightened her grip and tried to still the tremor in her voice. You know the pain of losing someone close to you, Kaine. You know that because you survived it. As the words hit home, Kaine was struck by the force of the love for her old woman. As a young child, she didn't even know of her grandmother, but when her parents died, the woman quickly accepted her as her own. Grandma, as Kaine called her, was cunning, vulgar, and quick to violence, and their first few years together had not been easy. But with each year that passed, Kaine and her grandmother had grown closer. However, it was only now, sitting in the mud with tears and blood-soaked caking her face, that Kaine truly understood the depths of her affection. Here was a woman who had seen hard times, who had seen the death, who had fought through all of these things and somehow emerged on the other side. If anyone could understand Kaine's pain and loneliness, it was her. Do I make you sick, Grandma? Of course not! Don't be an ass! Kaine drew her grandmother's moth-eaten shawl around her body and shuddered. My body. It's not normal. If I was normal, then Mom and Dad wouldn't— Hush! I'll not hear another word of this nonsense. You're my granddaughter, and I love you. And if folks have a problem with that, then they can just go to hell. And with that, the old woman reached out, placed a wreath of dried flowers in Kaine's hair. The skill it took to blend the flowers without breaking the stems or losing a single petal was remarkable, and the beauty of it made Kaine want to cry all over again. Oh my gosh, these are lunar tears. Grandma, you made this for me? Lunar tears were legendary flowers. Most people could live their entire lives without ever seeing one, and yet her grandmother had somehow collected a dozen or more. Kaine reached up and touched the wreath if she could believe if it was real. Where did you find these? Just stumbled on them when I was out doing the shopping. The old woman turned away as she spoke, leading Kaine to suspect the search had been more difficult than she was letting on. The pains she took to construct the ornament, let alone track down the flowers used in the construction, made Kaine's heart hurt. She reached up and gently adjusted the wreath, admiring the way it felt between her fingers. Didn't quite turn out right, said her grandmother as she squinted. These old hands have trouble with delicate work, but it sure looks good on a pretty girl like you. Kaine blushed and turned away. You think I'm pretty? Of course you are. What a fool thing to say. Thank you, Grandma. Her mother smiled. We're gonna be fine, you and me. Long as we got each other, we'll be just fine. Kaine took her grandmother's hand in hers, and the two of them struggled to their feet. As they began the long walk home, Kaine gripped her hand with all her might, as if trying to stop smoke from drifting away on the wind. The rain had stopped. Kaine stood beneath the weather vane, watching it spin lazily in circles, no longer caring about the direction it faced when it stopped. I don't need to escape. I have a home now. Grandma loves me, and that's enough. Even if it is us against the world. Kaine let her gaze drift up past the weather vane into the cloudy sky. The last faint hints of a rainbow were slowly fading. As she turned and headed for home, the light scattered into a million particles and vanished, seemingly taken away on the breeze. Kaine's dreams, daily life. In the distance, Kaine heard the steady sounds of an axe striking wood. The noise had purposeful quality to it, as if she was hearing the master woodsmith go about his work. The firewood being produced, however, was far from a work of art, as it could be. Pieces of every shape and size were being flung about in the barren yard with wild abandon. Anyone trying to stack such wood would probably die of frustration before the job was through. Stupid piece of shit axe! Kaine's grandmother flailed away with the axe, filling the air with both splinters of wood and words that would make the most hardened sailor blush. Grandma! Called Kaine. That you, Kaine? Yelled the old woman, taking her eyes off the wood for just a moment. Don't get too close or I might take your goddamn foot off by mistake. She brought the axe down on a piece of wood, sending chips flying in every direction. One spun past Kaine close enough for her to hear the whistle, at which point she decided to step back. Once she scuffed to a safe distance, she cupped her hands around her mouth and shouted, Grandma! Do you need help? I can get your water or lunch or a new axe or something. The axe, poised to strike another wobbly blow, paused in midair. The old woman considered her granddaughter's offer for a moment and then smiled. Tell you what, since I'm doing such a piss-poor job of chopping, why don't you come here and take over so I can get the water? Shades have been restless lately, and I don't want you running into one of them bastards. Relinquishing the axe, her grandmother packed up a long pole with a wooden bucket on either side. Gathering water was far more difficult of the two jobs, but Kaine knew better than to complain. Once Grandma's mind was set, there was no change in it. Kaine did her best to help with chores, but Grandma took every last task that required travel to the village. Though she had a long list of plausible excuses, Kaine knew the real reason. She didn't want her granddaughter to be taunted and harassed by the villagers. Once Kaine moved in, Grandma decided to take up residence a good distance from the Eyrie. Out of sight, out of mind seemed the best policy when it came to the villagers and her granddaughter, and rare were the days when any but the two of them could be found on the rocky acre of land they called home. Kaine enjoyed the solitude, but harbored a secret resentment for her grandmother that she was forced to spend her golden years in such a place. After watching her grandmother leave, Kaine turned her attention to the task at hand. She had never chopped wood before in her life and soon discovered why the old woman hated the chore. Swing after swing of the axe produced only a tiny crack in the wood, and when she finally managed to connect with a solid stroke, the tool embedded itself in the log and refused to budge. Frustrated, Kaine swung the axe around her head and threw it, log and all, across the yard. Damn! Damn it! Crap! Suddenly she understood the joy of her grandmother felt in good curse. Happier now, she picked up the axe and forced it from the wood and resumed chopping. She had a natural skill with a blade, but the task was challenging, and blisters soon began to form on her small pink hands. This is tough, and my logs are all weird sizes. Spitting on her palms and ignoring the pain, Kaine redoubled her efforts. Just as she was developing a rhythm, Grandma returned from the village. Setting down her buckets with a small sigh, and she took one look at the logs and coughed out a wheezy laugh. Pretty clumsy girl. You better practice if you... Her grandmother suddenly collapsed to her knees, causing one of the buckets to wobble precariously. Eyes wide, Kaine dropped the axe and ran to her grandmother's side. Grandma! The old woman shook her head and pointed a trembling finger at the bucket. Get the bucket, kid. Let it spill. Kaine steadied the bucket with a foot, and she knelt by her grandma. A small bit of water sloshed over the end and made a new home in the hem of her dress, but Kaine didn't notice. Grandma, what's happening? Crazed with panic, she grabbed her grandmother by the shoulders and shook. After a moment, the woman lifted her arms and batted Kaine away. Stop! Just stop that! Ain't like I'm dying. I just got tired from the trip is all. Kaine desperately wanted to believe her, but one look at the old woman's shaking hands and worn face told her there was more than words ever could. Her grandmother had lived a long, hard life, and it seemed the bill was finally coming due. The time when her grandmother watched over Kaine was ending. Sooner than either of them had feared, the positions would be reversed. The next morning, Kaine came to the side of her grandmother's bed and took her wrinkled hand. Grandma, you're sick, and you need medicine. I'm going to the village. The old woman shook her head and tried to rise, but Kaine gently pushed her down. It's all right. I'll be fine. Her grandmother fixed her with a gaze that could melt steel. After what seemed like an eternity, she finally lowered her eyes and sighed. Well, I don't like it, God damn it. But I guess I should quit being so stubborn and let you grow up. The old woman watched Kaine strap on her boots and made her way down the road to the village. Hours later, as an unseen sun made its way across a dark, rainy sky, she was still watching. Kaine moved at a brisk pace, checking her pockets every few minutes to make sure the money her grandmother was still there. Every noise caused her to spin on her heels and make sure she wasn't being stalked by a shade. Or worse, Demo. But she encountered neither tormentors nor shades, and Kaine finally found herself at the entrance to the village. The few adults she could see glanced sideways at her and then muttered to each other behind raised hands before slinking away into the shadows. Her heart racing, Kaine took a series of rapid, shallow breaths and tried to calm herself. I have to prove myself. I have to help Grandma. I have to be strong. She chanted those words over and over as she slowly made her way. Finally, her eyes settled on a rotund older woman who was angrily waving her arms in the air and telling everyone who would listen exactly what she thought of Kaine's presence. Hey, lady! Where's the apothecary? The woman's flabby cheeks shook in bewildered anger. How dare this thing speak to me? They seemed to say, but Kaine saw that her eyes held a different emotion. Fear. Yeah, we're both scared, lady. Trust me on this one. Which way? Kaine repeated. The woman pointed at a small building to her right before hitching up her dress and stumbling off in the other direction. Kaine cringed, expecting a stone to come flying across this assembled crowd, but none came. Her mind was filled with a strange sense of pride as she made her way to the apothecary, but a new emotion had little time to take root. As first she opened the door, she noticed a familiar customer at the counter. It was Demo. He'd clearly been sent there on some kind of family errand because his gang of followers was nowhere to be found. Oh my god. What are you doing here, freak? The insult was delivered without force, and Kaine happily ignored it. Stretching on tiptoes over the counter, she asked the shopkeeper for medication. Ha! That old bitch finally keel over? Go to hell, Demo. The boy's eyes grew wide, and they seemed ready to follow his head, but before he could fly out a comeback, or worse, a punch, the apothecary told them to knock it off before he kicked them out of the store. Demo slunk out of the shop, cursing Kaine under his breath. Once he was gone, she allowed herself to breathe once more, taking a brief tour of the shop while the owner prepared her medication. Countless tiny bottles filled the cramped store, each with a label written in some sort of undecipherable language. An ocean of aromas assaulted her nose, creating a scent that was exotic but not altogether unpleasant. Seeing a strange variety of supplies gave Kaine a sense of peace. Surely in a world so vast there would be a place that she could call home. On the far wall behind the counter rested a portrait of a young girl. The picture had once contained bright, vibrant colors, but time had reworked its cruel magic and they were beginning to fade. The beauty of the work, however, remained undiminished. You like that picture? Kaine turned to find the apothecary with a small vial of medicine in his hand, and his eyes were gentle but sad. They seemed to stare through her into nothing as he spoke. That's my daughter. I sketched it when she was just a little girl. She's been dead a long time now. Kaine didn't know how to respond. She just stared at the portrait and tried to come up with the right words. Pictures are wonderful things, continued the shopkeeper. They let the ones closest to you live on forever. He shook his head slightly and then looked down at Kaine and smiled. Handing her the medication, he reached down into his sizable green apron and produced a handful of old wax crayons. You should have these. There's no one left I wish to draw. Kaine took an instinctive step back, causing the shopkeeper's face to darken. Yes, I've heard the rumors about you. It's a small village, and word travels quickly. Between you and me, I'm not really sure which of them to believe. But I also don't think they matter much. I know your grandmother, Callie, and I think the way she was driven out of this town is just deplorable. Grandma's name is Callie? Thought Kaine. She was still mulling over that new fact in her mind as she reached out and gently took the crayons from the apothecary's hands. Your grandmother is an old friend of mine. I owe her much. I wager she would like it if you drew her a picture. Yes, I think she would like that very much. Kaine muttered a quiet agreement, but inside her heart was bursting. Never before had a villager treated her with anything but complete contempt. It was a tiny, almost imperceptible step, but it was a step nonetheless. And with enough tiny steps, she might one day discover the rest of the world. When Kaine returned home, she found her grandmother asleep in bed. Her feet were blackened and raw, even bleeding in a bit of places, leading Kaine to think that she had been pacing around the room until exhaustion finally caught up with her. She placed the medicine on grandmother's pillow and turned to leave, but found the old woman's hand clasped around her arm. Back already, are you? Come here, let me have a look at you. Grandma sat up and examined Kaine from head to toe. Finally satisfied that nothing terrible had befallen her grandchild, she leaned back and allowed herself to relax. Well, how was it? These bastards give you any trouble? It was kind of fun, said Kaine with a small smile. No, seriously, it was. Fun, eh? Uh-huh. So anytime you need me to run an errand, just let me know. As she spoke, Kaine removed the crayons from her pocket. After a brief explanation, she informed her grandmother that she was going to sketch her a portrait. A portrait of me? Ridiculous! No one wants to stare at a wrinkled old crone. But Grandma, it'll make you live forever. Horse shit. Living forever would just piss me off. Now put those crayons away and help with dinner. Kaine would not relent, and in the end, Grandma found herself leaning up against the wall and posing for the master artist. Kaine took up the crayons and eyed her subject carefully and set to work. Just as her grandmother was about to nod off, Kaine finished the piece. After staring at it for a bit, she released it from her grip and let it slowly drift to the floor. It's terrible. It doesn't look like you at all. I'm sorry, Grandma. I thought these crayons would, make drawing easy or something. The old woman's eyes narrowed at her granddaughter's disappointment. Let me be the judge of that. The sketch could have been a person's face, but it also could have been a boulder, a lump of clay, or an incredibly misshapen loaf of bread, all rendered in a chaotic array of colors. The old woman stared at the picture for a long time and then slowly wheezed out a laugh. Oh, Kaine. You truly are my blood. You're as clumsy as me, and I love it. But, hush, I won't hear any more bull about how ugly you think this is. It came from the heart, and I'll treasure it always. True to her word, the old woman gave the portrait a place of honor on the kitchen table. In the days that followed, Kaine would often catch herself staring at the portrait with a strange smile, an action she interpreted as silent, mocking laughter. A week later, Kaine could stand it no more and asked her grandmother to take down the artwork. Posh! I'll take this down when they roll me in my shroud. Listen to me, girl. Seeing this picture makes me happy in a way I've never felt before, and it makes me want to go on so that someday you can feel the same happiness. It was a moment that burned itself in Kaine's memory, a perfect blend of pride and love and joy that came together to form a lifelong remembrance. She swore to never forget this moment and to never forget the old woman who had made her place in this world possible. Time moves on. People and memories move in and out of life like ghosts passing through a hall, but this moment will be different, Kaine swore, because I will remember it forever. Forever. Kaine listened to the sound of crackling firewood and stared into the black object on her plate. She'd been pushing it around the wooden disc for a long 10 minutes, ignoring the bemused stare of her grandmother. Finally, she summoned her courage. Grandma, I can't believe you want me to eat a bug. The old woman threw some more wood under the cooking pot and snorted. It's no bug, fool, it's a berry. Why the hell would I be feeding you bugs? Yeah, well, it sure looks like a bug, and I think you burned it or something because it smells terrible. With that, Kaine held up her nose and threw the berry in her mouth, chewing as little as possible. Oh yeah, that's terrible, alright. Why, you little brat! Look at the sass on you. You've been spending too much time with me, and that's a fact. 5 years had passed since the moment when Kaine's grandmother saved her from the bullies. As often is the way with two stubborn people, their relationship has grown in fits and starts, but moved forward all the same. Meals that used to be somber affairs were now filled with laughter and hurled in abuse in equal measure. Kaine could not remember a time when she had been happier. As the years went by, Kaine stared to shoulder more and more of the daily responsibilities. Her grandmother's legs grew weaker. She could no longer do many of the chores and she used to take for granted. So this morning, Kaine was lacing up her work boots with a breakfast of burned berry rolling through her belly. Where are you going today? Kaine looked up surprised. The old woman rarely asked for specifics. Well, I was going to check out the kelma trees and see if they were ripe. I thought we could make some jam or something. Oh, I'm going to pick up some flagstones. I need to make a wheelbarrow. Flagstones? What the hell for? Kaine stared at her grandmother, then held an arm out to sweep her the room. Constructed out of mostly cloth, rope, rubble, and the old place sagged like a boxer in the final round. Grandma, a dying cat could chew through this house. I'm gonna build a stone wall so we can have some protection. The old woman laughed, exposing her toothless grin. God damn it, girl. If a bunch of thieves want to ransack this old place, let them come. We got nothing worth stealing. I'm not worried about thieves, I'm worried about shades. People saw one west of the village yesterday. The old woman tilted her head and stared at her granddaughter. Well, shoot, I don't know why you have to do it today. We can worry about it some other. Grandma, no. If I don't go to the kelma trees, we won't eat tonight. You know that. Confused expression passed across the old woman's face. For a moment, she was a small child. Yes, of course, you're right. I'm sorry, Kaine. Lately, it seems my mind is... She didn't finish that thought, instead of walking over to the nightstand and gently taking the wreath of lunar tears from the drawer. The flower's petals had aged to a brilliant whiteness, and Kaine thought it was more beautiful now than the day she first received it. You're going to be a true woman soon. Place the flowers in her hair. So that means less chatter about shades and building defensive walls and more talk about how beautiful you've become. Annoyed, Kaine reached up to remove the garland, but the look on her grandmother's face stopped her hand. You're a beautiful thing, and there ain't nothing like you in all the world. I'm very proud of you. Okay, Grandma, that's enough goddamn compliments for one day. Such a mouth on you. Where'd that come from? Gee, I wonder. I'll teach you to sass me, girl. Suddenly, she lurched forward and grabbed Kaine by the ears and pulling her around the room with a crazed grin. Grandma! Grandma, stop it! What the hell? The old woman stared at her and blinked, and then slowly her wrinkled hands, as if it was the first time she'd ever seen them. I don't know what happened there. I'm sorry, girl. My mind's just... Kaine thought the look on her grandmother's face was the most heartbreaking thing she had ever seen. Listen, maybe I should stay home after all. No, I won't have you stay here and keep an eye on an old codger like me. You go get the fruit and your wall or whatnot. I'll be fine. And when you come back, I'll have a nice grasshopper dinner waiting for you. Kaine rolled her eyes and then kissed her grandmother on the forehead and made ready to depart, trying desperately to ignore the worry that was gnawing at the walls of her heart. Kaine could feel the old woman's eyes watching her as she moved down the path. Don't turn around, don't turn around, don't turn around. But in the end, temptation was too great. On her heel for one final look, she saw a small, bent woman standing in front of a ramshackle hut with a sad expression on her face. God, she looks so old now. It's like the wind could reach down and just carry her away. Kaine worried about her grandmother all day, causing her work to suffer. What little fruit she could collect was tossed carelessly in the wheelbarrow, and she only found a couple of stones before losing interest in the project. Finally, as dusk approached, she decided to call it a day. Cursing herself for the lack of focus, Kaine pushed the near empty wheelbarrow back up the path. As she crested the final hill, suddenly she froze in place, and the wheelbarrow fell from her fingers and collapsed on its side, sending a few pieces of wrinkled brown fruit rolling down the hill. Her gaze was transfixed by a thick, black cloud that hovered just ahead. Tracing its path with her finger, Kaine suddenly felt her stomach knot itself. No. Oh, God, no. Her grandmother's house was ablaze, the flames licking it up as if trying to touch the sky itself. Grandma! Grandma! Kaine ran faster than she'd ever moved in her life. Once she tripped on a stone and went sprawling on the rocky ground, but she leapt to her feet and continued running, unmindful of the blood that spilled from the wound in her hands. She got closer. Kaine's mind began to race in time with her footfalls. It's too dark. It's too dark. It's not just fire. It can't be fire. It's too much smoke. Gotta save her. Gotta save her. She burst into the front yard and came to a sudden halt, and the worst suspicion confirmed. The smoke from the fire was mingling with the thick blacky inkness of an enormous shade. The massive creature supported itself on 3 twisted feet, achieved balance through the means of a large armored tail. Scales, horns, claws sprouted from its body in random chaotic pattern, giving it the appearance of a giant lizard designed by some insane god. Seeing Kaine, it let out a roar and flicked its tail, sending small whirlwinds spinning around the yard. For a moment, the creature retreated into a shimmering, inky blackness, as if her mind was unable to comprehend that such a thing could actually exist. But then the smell hit her, a blend of rotten meat and excrement, and the horror became real once more. The creature bellowed again, and this time Kaine responded with a scream of her own. "All right, you bastard!" she thought, as her scream echoed off the high cliffs around them. "It's you or me! Let's go!" The shade eyed Kaine with bemused interest, and then it began looking from her to the house and back again, as if urging her to look in the destruction it had so gleefully wrought. With dread building in her heart, Kaine glanced toward the house, and through smoke and flames she spotted a small figure struggling to escape the ruins. "Grandma!" At the sound of her voice, the old woman began waving frantically. "She's alive! Alive!" Kaine's legs sprang to life as she raced across the yard towards the flaming wrecked house. Before she could advance more than a few steps, the shade opened its mouth and let out a roar powerful enough to uproot trees and send them flying. The blast sent Kaine tumbling through the air before smashing her against the rocky earth. Stars danced in front of her as she tried to remember how her legs worked. Get up! 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 Get up now! As Kaine struggled to her feet, the shade stomped towards the house and pinned her grandmother to the ground with the tip of a claw. The old woman struggled to move, and she might have well been pushing a mountain. She coughed briefly, sending a small spray of blood into the air, and then collapsed to the ground, her energy spent. Kaine lurched to her feet, only to fall back to the earth with a grasp. Her ankles were on fire. One or both of them were surely broken. Ignoring the pain, she screamed. She began dragging herself across the ground, leaving a drunken trail of blood and dust in her wake. "Grandma, hold on. Just a little longer." Her grandmother's face was turning blue, and her eyes rolling back until only the whites were exposed. Kaine pulled herself across the ground, maddening slowness, the distance seeming to increase with every second that passed. The shade glanced between the two women and flicked its tongue, the giant mouth turning up. Short, panting breaths belched from somewhere deep inside its core. "Bastard, laughing at us." She had no idea how such a mindless creature could experience emotion, but there had been no doubt the shade was taking joy in their suffering. Yeah, I see your plan." The shade moved its claw slightly, allowing Grandma to breathe again, but it was clearly keeping her alive only to snuff her out when Kaine was close enough to touch her. "I'm gonna kill this bastard." Summoning all her strength, Kaine rose to her feet. There, a sickening snap from her right ankle as the foot twisted backward, but she forced it from her mind and began to hobble towards the monster. Pulling a small knife from the pouch of her waist, she leapt on the foot that pinned her grandmother and plunged the weapon deep. "Give her back! Give her back to me!" It was like stabbing a rock, and after a few swipes the knife broke at the hilt, a dull snap. The shade panted laughter again, then raised its tail and sent rushing through the air toward the young girl. Kaine never had a chance. The tail struck her square in the chest and sent her crashing into the burning wreckage. As she lay on the ground with blood pouring from multiple wounds, a small, weak voice rose up. "Kaine." Kaine's vision blurred, and she forced herself to focus on the sound. Finally, her eyes cleared enough for her to make out her grandmother's hands reaching out through the smoke. "Grandma, Kaine, you gotta run. You can't best this one." Kaine grabbed these hands and held on with all her strength. "Grandma, come on. We have to." The old woman coughed loudly, and one of her hands, slick with blood, slipped from Kaine's grasp and thumped to the ground. "Grandma, no. No! I said run, goddammit! You have to live! You have to get through!" The thought would stay forever unfinished. Before she could say another word, the shade's clawed foot descended, smashing through the remains of the roof, down upon the shattered figure of the old woman. Blood oozed from the gaps of the creature's toes as the terrible putrid smell assaulted Kaine's nose once again. She stared at the foot, dumbfounded, and convinced that she was seeing could not possibly be real. When the creature finally lifted its appendage, all that remained underneath was a twisted, unrecognizable mass of rubble and red. Her grandmother was gone. Kane blinked, trying to feel the hands in which had been hers a moment before. For a fleeting instant she could remember the warmth of the embrace. Trembling the fingers, the satisfaction, drifted away and the breeze was gone. Memories flashed through Kane's mind, one after the other, faster and faster until they became a meaningless jangle of noise. Kane screamed then, a thunderous sound that echoed up the cliffs and seemed to roll away forever. The shade eased forward, and black ichor, pouring from its mouth, dissolving into smoke on the ground below. The earth shook with every step as it crept towards its prey. Kane's body slowly rose as if controlled by a mad puppeteer. Her arms and legs were bent at possible angles, and her head lolled dangerously to the side, yet somehow she managed to stand. Staring at the shade, the eyes began to glow with a deep fire red. The creature, so confident just moments before, took a slow, hesitant step backwards, trying to discern if this broken human could possibly pose a threat. Kane seized the moment, laughing like a mad woman, and leapt in the air and plunged the shattered hilt of her knife deep into the leg of the shade. The shade shook Kane off like a fly, sending her crashing to the earth once again. Her chest rose and fell slowly as if the weight were just resting on it. Moist sounds of pain echoed through her mind. Something warm and thick oozed from her ears. Is that blood? I think I'm bleeding to death. No, can't die. Deep inside Kane's mind, something finally broke. The sound, the pain, the smoke, the flames, all of it faded away until all that remained was a single incantation repeated over and over again. Kill it. Kill it. Kill it. Kill it, 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 kill it now! As the spark that was Kane's slowly began to fade and flicker and die, she felt her desire to kill and her desire to live blend into one. The distance between heartbeats grew longer and longer. The shade, sure that its tormentor was dead, turned and stomped off towards the horizon, stomping along the way to the fellow one roar. Couldn't kill it. Shamed beyond imagining, Kaine tried to turn her head to the side, but only succeeded in coughing up a huge gout of blood. It was getting difficult to see, but only after a moment of fierce concentration did she realize she had lost her left eye. Laughing to herself, she turned her remaining eye to the ruins of her home and noticed a ragged stump of an arm resting a few feet away. Yeah, that's mine, she thought with a mad giggle. This is gonna make clapping a real bitch. Ha! Cried a sudden voice from the depths of her mind. Finally gonna die, are ya? Well, you had it coming. Go to hell, Demo, she thought. At the unseen assailant, go to hell before I pluck out your eyes and feed them to a dog. The voice of her childhood terror evaporated into smoke, only to be replaced by another, more recent voice. Hold still, said the apothecary, materializing from the ruins like a ghost. I want to draw you the way you can live forever. No, stop. Don't want to live forever. Want to die right now. Right here. I see. Well, if that's what you want. The spectral shopkeeper fluttered in and out of existence for a moment, then produced a piece of paper and sketched quickly. After a few seconds, he turned the page and Kaine smiled. Since you rejected my offer, I decided to draw someone else. It was a picture of her grandmother, real as life. Kaine opened her mouth to thank the man, but stopped as the picture began to blacken in the middle. Before she could say anything, dozens of multi-legged insects began to swarm across the image, tearing at it with sharp pincers. No, stop! Don't hurt that picture! Kaine reached out with her remaining arm and waved futilely in the air. To her surprise, the insects fell off the picture into the ground below, where they vanished in tiny black tendrils of smoke. Relieved, Kaine turned her good eye to the picture, only to open her mouth in a silent scream. The sketch now showed her grandmother. She truly was a smashed, unrecognizable lump of nothing. The apothecary smiled, then broke into a jolly dance. See that? It's perfect now. She looks like you. Ha 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 ha! I look like that? Oh God. Oh God, I'm gonna die. I'm gonna die. Drowning in despair, Kaine laid her head on the mud and smoke of her ruined house and waited for the end to come. But just before she let everything go, an unfamiliar voice began whispering in her ear. Ain't you got a wish, sunshine? The voice was vulgar and fierce at the same time, as if insanity had somehow found its way to take form. Kaine suddenly wanted to scream as the voice crawled under her skin and her lungs refused to work. You know, a wish, like a prayer or something. Why don't you get on your knees and start praying to heaven? Please, invisible man in the sky, save me, save me! Ha ha! Kaine finally resorted to shouting at the voice in her mind. I don't make wishes, they don't come true for me. I'm a curse, a freak. I should be left to die. The other voice boomed in her ears. Ha! God, you are the best! Kaine glanced down and saw a black, shiny substance oozing from her legs. Tried to brush it away, but her remaining arm would no longer respond. The substance slowly crept around her feet and then began moving toward the rest of her body. Is this death? Is this what it's like? Or is my mind just losing itself? She could feel the slime oozing upward, but feel a hot, smearing pain and left in its wake. Whatever else might be happening, she was still alive, and this was real. Come on! Let go! Kaine tried to ignore the voice and concentrate on the pain, but the newcomer wouldn't have none of it. Don't ignore me, sunshine! You're ready to give up, ready to die, so why not let it have it? Have what? Your body! Come on, give it to me. Give it to me! I want to stand on ground, feel the rain, taste the wind! The voice paused as if licking its lips. then resumed and was filled with mad, unabated joy. I want to take your hands and use them to choke the goddamn life out of people. I want to tear out their throats and bathe in the blood just like before. In response, Kaine shifted her head and vomited. The warmth of it crept down her front and mingled with the pain and the encroaching black ooze. Are you a shade? Yeah, maybe. What of it? The slime reached her face, crept up past her nose, and slowly oozed into the socket of her missing eye. The moment it touched her brain, Kaine was struck by the most powerful sensation she'd ever felt in her life. It was ecstasy. She wanted to scream with delight, but all she could manage was a small, whispered moan. Feels good, doesn't it? Yeah, what can I say? I know how to please the ladies. Now come on and give me that body. Come on, give me the body. I'll give you more of this feeling. It's a fair trade. The black lump began to protrude from Kaine's side. As she watched, it grew longer and thicker, eventually taking form in her missing arm. I can see better. My eye must be growing back, too. The slime reached up to envelop the rest of her face, but she managed to brush it away. Stop. Stop. The black ooze hesitated, considering their request, then quickly shimmered down her body before disappearing in a cloud of smoke. Ah, what the hell, Sunshine? We had a deal! I thought you wanted to die! Grandma said, Can't die yet. A brief image of her grandmother's bloodied, broken body flashed before her eyes, and she saw the shade that killed her and heard its mocking laughter, and then closed her eyes and forced the image from her mind. Her whole body was quaking with rage, and when she opened her eyes again, they burned bright red. That thing took my grandmother. I have to kill it before I die. Kaine glanced down and saw a mysterious pattern, the pattern of the shades burned into the left arm. Well, I'll be damned. Look at that, Sunshine! I think you and me are gonna be good friends now. I don't want to fight, Hansel. Kaine immediately stared at her arm, more emotional than she felt. The more letters seemed ready to puncture her skin and began infecting the rest of her body. The arm clearly had a will of its own now. Stop. Gotta stop. Holding her left arm in her right, Kaine took a deep breath and tried to calm herself. Come on, don't fight it. Hate's my favorite dish and I'm hungry. Let it go. Feel the anger. Burn with the fire of revenge. Thirst for blood. And then go out there and shut up and get the hell out of my body. Your body? That's rich, Sunshine. Real rich. Look, why don't you just up and die so I can have this body all to myself? What do you say? I bet those buddies of yours in the Yuri would love to see you dead. Kaine grabbed a nearby shard of glass and tried to saw off the shade-infected portion of her side. Before she could, her darkened left arm grabbed her wrist, crushing it. Kaine screamed and dropped the shard, and sound bone crunching on bone filled the air. Ah, stupid idiot girl, you're possessed now. There ain't no going back. The voice laughed again, a loud wail that seemed to go on without end. Possessed. Yeah, I don't want to do this. You? Me? Whoa. I don't want to fight this at all. You might call it a timeshare arrangement. Remember how folks used to think you were a freak? Well, wait till they get a load of you now. Kaine looked up, tears in her eyes. The sky seemed smaller now, darker. Is this because of that shade? Oh. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. It's I who rely on them. I don't want to kill them. sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Tyrion, shut the fuck up. Oh. Fuck! I don't want to do this. It's not supposed to be funny. This is supposed to be tragic. I don't want to hit him. 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 Is this how they see the world? So, well, listen. I know this whole possession thing seems a bit sudden, but it ain't all bad. There's plenty in it for you. I'm a very powerful creature, Sunshine, and now that power belongs to you. You got enemies? People you want to kill? Boy. I can make it happen. That little fat kid who keeps picking on you? That big old shade that squashed your granny? We'll wrap them up in their own assholes. You're not that strong, more abuse
Tyrion.
for you, Sunshine.
Do you have anything to say?
No more pain. Wait. You're a shade. Why would you help me kill another shade? What? You think I'm some kind of racist? Some killing snob? I don't give a goddamn who I murder, honey pants. I just want to drink from the well. Kinda considered this as she struggled to her feet and the power of the shade coursing through her. The smoke from her house was drifting away with the wind, and she enjoyed the way the cool evening breeze felt on her left arm. After a long pause, the voice spoke up again. So, how about it? You and me. We could have some good times together. Look, I'll even take care of the bloody part if you don't want. Fuck off, asshole. I'll handle the killing. Look at you go. Oh, sunshine. We're gonna have so much fun. Listen, my name's Tyrion. If you ever need me, I'll just be hanging out on this piece of meat you call a heart. Now get to it! The more you kill, the more it turns rotten and sour, and I like rotten and sour. Kaine found herself nodding at the voice. Yeah, I think this can work. I'm gonna find that shade, and I'm gonna strangle it with its own guts. And when I'm done, I'm gonna do the same to you, Tyrion. Count on it. I've got shit bigger than you, so good luck with that. Oh, and hey, one more thing. Right now, you and me sharing this body. But if you ever run out of hate, if you ever, go soft, then I'm gonna take over everything. So keep on killing, sunshine, and watch your back. The voice grew fainter and gradually faded away, fading somewhere deep inside Kaine. Kaine waited till she was sure the voice was gone, then waved her new arm. It feels perfectly normal. It feels like mine. Desperately, she began poking and prodding at the new limb, determined to find something wrong. She didn't want to feel normal. That would mean the creature inside her had already won. I'm not a shade. I'm Kaine. Repeating this mantra, she slowly began digging through the rubble of her house, careful to ignore a certain red-stained counter. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity of heartbreaking work, she found it. The wreath of lunar tears. Though it had been through hell and back, the garland's petals were as bright as ever. Kaine started to place it in her hair and then slowly lowered the wreath and stared at it. I'm sorry, Grandma. I'm so sorry. But I don't deserve to wear this anymore. I'm possessed. Corrupted. A freak. And this time, I don't think there's any going back. Holding the flowers in her heart, Kaine fell to the ground and sobbed. As night gradually lightened to dawn, the people of the area rose to their daily lives, and she remained in that position, as if tears could somehow wash away the horror that infected. Okay. We got our heading. So I think we're going to do the junk heap first so that we can get that last machine oil. Because I need to finish one particular side quest to get a weapon. That's the last weapon from side quests I need. And then, we'll take care of that. Thank you so much for watching. This video is going to be edited in a very specific way, so that it's more enjoyable for you visually than it is for me that I played it. I hope you enjoy. I will see you in the next episode for Branch B. I'm clocking out. See you later. Bye-bye.